"Get out! You don't belong in first class!" The voice echoed through Flight 447 as 200 passengers turned to stare. A man in an expensive suit was yelling at someone in sunglasses and a baseball cap. "This is my airline. I sit wherever I want. You go to the back where you belong." But what this airline executive didn't know was that he was about to humiliate the most famous person on Earth. And what happened next would haunt him forever. But what I'm about to tell you will blow your mind. 2 hours earlier, LAX Airport, March 1988. A man in casual clothes and dark sunglasses quietly boarded Continental Flight 447 to New York. Seat 2A, first class. He moved through the airport unnoticed, just another passenger. Nobody recognized him. The baseball cap and sunglasses were perfect camouflage. Richard Hampton, a senior vice president of Continental Airlines, was having a terrible day. His meeting with investors had gone badly. Continental was struggling financially, and the board was asking hard questions. Hampton always flew first class, always sat in 2A. For 20 years, it was his seat, his sanctuary, his symbol of success. But today, someone was sitting in his seat. Wait until you hear what happened when he got on that plane. Hampton walked onto Flight 447 with his usual arrogance. 25 years of climbing the corporate ladder had given him a sense of entitlement that bordered on aggression. He reached row 2 and stopped. There was someone in his seat. A young black man in casual clothes, baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses hiding his face. Definitely not the type Hampton expected in first class. "Say, excuse me," the stranger said politely as Hampton approached. "I think you're in my seat." Hampton looked down with cold eyes. He saw everything he expected. Young, black, casual clothes, probably in his 20s. This was obviously some kind of mistake. "I don't think so," Hampton said dismissively. "This is Seat 2A, first class. Are you sure you're in the right section?" The stranger held up his boarding pass. "Yes, sir, Seat 2A, first class." Hampton barely glanced at the ticket. In his mind, there was no way this kid could afford a first-class seat legitimately. "Listen, son," Hampton said, his voice dripping with condescension. "There's obviously been some computer error. I'm Richard Hampton. I'm Senior Vice President of Continental Airlines. I run this airline, and I sit wherever I choose." But here's where it got really ugly. The stranger remained calm. "Sir, I understand you work for the airline, but I paid for this seat." That's when Hampton lost it. "You paid?" Hampton laughed loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. "With what money? Look at you. Baseball cap, sneakers, casual clothes. You don't belong here." Other passengers started turning to watch. The tension in first class was building. "What do you even do for work?" Hampton sneered, enjoying the attention from other passengers. "I'm a musician," the stranger said quietly. Hampton's laugh became nasty, performative. "A musician? Oh, this is rich. Let me guess. Street corners? Subway stations? Those don't exactly pay for first-class tickets, do they?" A few passengers looked uncomfortable, but nobody intervened. This was awkward, but Hampton was clearly in charge. "Security!" Hampton called out. "We have a situation here." Flight attendant Sarah Mitchell approached with 15 years of experience dealing with difficult passengers. She immediately sensed this was going to be bad. "What seems to be the problem, Mr. Hampton?" she asked professionally. Hampton gestured at the man in sunglasses like he was pointing at trash. "This person thinks he belongs in first class. Obviously, there's been some kind of system error. He needs to be moved to wherever people like him are supposed to sit." The way he said, "people like him," made several passengers wince. Sarah checked the stranger's boarding pass carefully. "Sir, this gentleman does indeed have seat 2A. You're assigned to seat 3B." Hampton's face turned red. That's impossible. I specifically requested 2A. I always sit in 2A. But you're not going to believe what he said next. Sarah, Hampton said, using her first name like she was his servant. I think you're confused. I'm Richard Hampton, Senior VP of Continental Airlines. He waved his company ID around. This airline belongs to me. This plane belongs to me. I sit wherever I damn well please. The cabin was getting tense. Other passengers were whispering. You think because you bought a ticket, that makes you equal to everyone else here, Hampton continued, performing for his audience. But it doesn't. I'm an executive. I've earned this through success. You're a street musician, a nobody. We are not the same. A woman in seat 1A had been watching with growing anger. She was clearly professional, educated. Mr. Hampton, do you realize what you're doing? She said, standing up. Hampton turned to her, irritated. I'm handling a seating problem. You're committing discrimination in front of 200 witnesses. Hampton scoffed. This is about knowing your place. And where exactly is this man's place? The woman asked. Not in first class, that's for sure. Look at him. Baseball cap, casual clothes. Obviously not first-class material. The woman smiled. Mr. Hampton, I think you should know exactly who you're talking to. Some nobody musician who thinks that nobody musician is Michael Jackson. But you're not going to believe what happened next. The words hit the cabin like a bomb exploding. Michael Jackson. Hampton's face went white as a sheet. That's impossible. The woman nodded. I'm Dr. Patricia Williams, a civil rights attorney, and I know Michael Jackson when I see him. Every eye in first class turned to the man in sunglasses. The whispers started immediately. Is that really him? Oh my God, it could be. Remove the sunglasses. Let's see. The stranger, Michael, slowly removed his baseball cap first, then his sunglasses. The most recognizable face on earth was revealed. It was really him, Michael Jackson, the king of pop, the biggest star in the world, the man whose Thriller album had broken every sales record in history. Holy shit, someone whispered from the back. It's actually him, another passenger gasped. Michael fucking Jackson. Hampton stood frozen, his mind trying to process what had just happened. He'd just called Michael Jackson a nobody, a street musician, told him he didn't belong in first class, but the same Michael Jackson who could buy Continental Airlines with pocket change. The same Michael Jackson who was worth more money than Hampton could dream of. The same Michael Jackson he'd just humiliated in front of 200 passengers. The cabin was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. But here's what shocked everyone on that plane. Michael Jackson looked at Richard Hampton with something that almost resembled pity. Mr. Hampton, Michael said quietly, his famous voice now unmistakable to everyone listening. I want to ask you something. Hampton was sweating now, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated. Mr. Jackson, I had no idea. I sincerely... If I wasn't Michael Jackson, Michael interrupted, would you have treated me any differently? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Would you have treated any young black man in casual clothes the same way? Hampton opened his mouth, but no words came out, because everyone on the plane knew the answer. You said I'm a nobody, Michael continued, his voice calm but firm. That I don't belong here. That we're not the same, that street musicians can't afford first class. Michael paused, letting that sink in. But you just showed 200 people what you really think about anyone who looks like me. Hampton was trembling now. Mr. Jackson, please. I didn't know who you were. That's exactly the problem, Michael said. You didn't know who I was, so you felt free to humiliate me based on nothing but assumptions. The entire plane was watching this exchange in stunned silence. "How many other passengers have you treated this way, Mr. Hampton? How many other black people have you assumed don't belong in first class?" Hampton couldn't answer, because they all knew. But what Michael did next will restore your faith in humanity. Michael stood up calmly and looked around the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize that you had to witness this. This isn't how anyone should be treated on an airplane or anywhere else." He turned back to Hampton. "Mr. Hampton, I'm going to sit in seat 2A now. You can take your assigned seat in 3B. And I suggest you spend this flight thinking about whether the person you just showed these passengers is the person you want to be." Hampton nodded weakly and moved to his correct seat, his hands visibly shaking. But 5 minutes later, something unexpected happened. Hampton stood up and walked to the front of the cabin. He asked Sarah for the microphone. "Sir, are you sure about this?" Sarah whispered. Hampton nodded, his face pale but determined. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hampton said, his voice cracking as it echoed through the entire plane. "First class, business class, and coach." All 200 passengers could hear him. "This is Richard Hampton, Senior Vice President of Continental Airlines." The plane was dead silent. Everyone was listening. "I need to address what just happened in first class." His voice was shaking now. "5 minutes ago, I discriminated against a fellow passenger because of how he looked. I assumed he didn't belong in first class. I was wrong. Completely and utterly wrong." Hampton's voice cracked. That passenger was Michael Jackson. But more importantly, he was a human being who deserved to be treated with dignity. And I failed. He turned to look at Michael. "Mr. Jackson, I can't undo what I did. I can't take back my words or my assumptions. But I can promise you this. I'm going to make sure this never happens to anyone on any continental flight ever again." The entire plane erupted in applause. Not for Michael's fame, but for his grace under pressure. And for Hampton's willingness to face his own ugliness in front of 200 strangers. Dr. Williams wiped tears from her eyes. "That's how real change happens," she said to her seatmate. "Here's what happened after that flight that changed everything." Hampton kept his word. He returned to Continental headquarters and implemented the most comprehensive anti-discrimination training program in airline history, using his own story as the primary example. "See, I discriminated against Michael Jackson," he would tell training sessions. "But worse, I showed you what I really think about black passengers in first class." For 5 years, Hampton traveled to every continental hub, sharing his humiliation to educate others. The program reached over 100,000 employees. Other airlines copied it. Michael never spoke publicly about the incident, but 5 years later, Hampton sent him a letter. "You could have destroyed my career that day. Instead, you educated an entire industry. Over 100,000 airline employees have received training because of you." That continental flight proved something powerful. Sometimes the best response to discrimination isn't anger. It's holding up a mirror. Michael Jackson had every right to humiliate Hampton and seek revenge. Instead, he chose education over destruction, to grace over anger. Hampton thought he was putting a nobody in his place. Instead, Michael Jackson put him face to face with his own prejudices. If someone discriminated against you because of how you looked, would you have the grace to let them